Hello and welcome to Lightning Component Development Session Day 12. This is Amit and today we will learn all about standard controller for the Lightning component, and that is also known as Lightning data services. So we will see how we can use Lightning data services for weaving a record, that we can say that for querying a record for a particular ID, for creating, updating or deleting the record, and then for the lab work we will modify our create BR component, and that will be using Lightning standard controller, and that is also force colon record data. So when we say that Lightning standard controller, that means that standard controller is same as a Visual Force controller, and the Visual Force has its own standard controller. Lightning component also have its standard controller, that is known as a tag, that is force colon record data. This standard controllers works as the same for the Visual Force page, that only works for a single record at a time, and we can create method, we can create records, we can save, update, delete, or we can reload the records with the updated values. So these are four methods that are available for force colon record data. Get new record, what it does, it returns a complete template for a record with all the required fields or non-required fields. And save record method is responsible for saving the methods, saving the record. Whenever we are clicking on the submit button, we need to call a JavaScript controller method, and that will call save record method to create a new record or update an existing record. And then for deleting the record, delete record is a method that we can delete a particular record, and then reload record is a method that we can reload a particular record with the updated values. Say for example, if you are updating any particular record, or if you are sending a record ID from one component to other component, we can just use force colon record data, and then we can call a method reload record for displaying the value or for fetching the value of all the fields that particular record have. So this is the complete syntax for a force colon record data, the syntax and attribute. So force colon record data, this is a sample tag that we used for Aura, or we use for Lightning inputs. So Aura ID is ID that we can provide, that will be very helpful while we are working with the methods, all three or four methods. Record ID, the record ID of the particular record that we wanted to fetch. We wanted to fetch the fields, or if you wanted to create the fields, we don't need to provide the ID, provide the record ID attribute. Layout type, we can provide two type of layout type, either it will be full or it will be compact based on our requirement. And this layout type is also responsible for what kind of fields, what fields that are accessible using force colon record data. Fields, fields to query, we can also specify what fields we wanted to query here. Say for example, we wanted to query only ID and name for a particular object. We can specify fields here on using comma separated ID and name. So either we can provide layout type or we can provide fields. These two are optional, but one is required for fetching the fields. Mode, it can be either view or it can be edit. View for fetching the records, edit for creating or updating the record. And then the target record, the complete template of the record that we are going to create or we are going to retrieve. And then the target fields is also a record, also object type attribute that provides the simplified view of the record that has been loaded for the target record. And then the target error, if there is any error, this attribute comes into the picture and we can show the error and we can also display the error. And then there is one other attribute, that is target updated. On the target updated means if you are updating any value for a any field for a particular record, then we can execute a method that is called as target updated, and then we can call a JavaScript controller method. So let's see how this force colon record data, how Lightning standard controller works for the Lightning component. So first we will see how we can fetch the records using the LDS. So this will be a sample syntax. So let's go ahead and create a new component for this. Go to developer console, file new, and create a new component, and we will name it as LDS view record. LDS means Lightning Data Service, and then view record. We are not going to we are going to use on the record page. So select this Lightning page and record page. As we are going to get the ID from the attribute from the object from the record. Let's, for example, if you wanted to put that object here inside detail page of any BA record, we wanted to get the dynamic ID from the URL. So that we are going to implement /hash record ID interface, and then as usual we will going to use first we are going to create some attribute, one for target record and then one for target fields and the other one for target error. So let's go ahead and create 3 attribute. 2 will be will be object type, so that it will automatically and dynamically be typecasted. We don't need to provide that as object type, that is BA record. And then here we can record fields, and then attribute name equal to, we can say that record error, and this will be type of string. And one thing also, Lightning Data Services already preserve all the field level securities. If you don't have access to a particular field, then Lightning Data Services will not create or update that particular field using the Lightning Data Service. So here then we will create /record data. We can say that aura ID record viewer, and then for record ID we will use /hash record ID. So we already have record ID attribute. Then for layout type, let's say that we are going to use full, and then mode will be view, target record, we are going to use that v.record, and then target fields we are going to use as v.record fields, target error. You can see that what we did, we created 3 attributes: record fields, record errors, and then we created the standard controller. This is the syntax for standard controller that we also say, that is also known as Lightning Data Services. So now, as Lightning Data Services don't have any UI, don't have any inbuilt UI like Lightning record form, that if we provide record ID for the Lightning record form, it automatically creates the layout, whatever the layout type we have provided, either full or compact. But in case of Lightning Data Services, it doesn't have any UI. If you wanted to take input for any particular field, or if you wanted to display the information for a particular field, we have to use our own syntax. Let's say that if you wanted to display the name, we can go with the we can go with the attribute that is called the target fields. Whatever the attribute we have provided in the target fields, we can use that attribute here. The same syntax, we as an value provider, then the attribute name, and then name. Here now if we use this component, we must be able to see the name of the beer record or whatever the name. For example, if we are using this component inside the contact, inside the account, inside the opportunity, whatever the object have the name field, we will be able to see the name of that particular object. So let's go ahead, edit the page and add that particular object here, either in the right side particular component. Here we will be adding LDS view record. Add this here. Okay, you can see, click on activate, assign org as default, save, go back. So here you can see whatever the name of beer is, we are able to see the name of the beer. So now this is the way we can whatever the fields we wanted to retrieve, here we can retrieve all the fields. Let's say that if you wanted to use ID, we can also use ID. And we did using target fields. We can also retrieve the information using target record. There is let's say that for if you wanted to use target records, there is the different syntax, but we can do that as well. Using target record, to display that we have to use the same syntax, that is v as a value provider, they have a name of the attribute, then fields, then the name of the field, then value. I think this is the syntax that we have to use to get the information using that. Here put one more sign here so that we can identify if we are able to get or not. Now refresh the page. See here we are able to get the name, the ID of beer record, and then using target record we are also able to get the name of the beer record. So either if you wanted to use any one of these syntax, either target record or target fields, you can use any one of them to get the information. So this is the basic syntax that we can use with the help of target records or target fields here. But in case of if you are using target record, then you have to put some complex formula, that is records, then fields, then the name of the fields, and then value. So this was a simple example for the record viewer, for the fetching the records for any fields. Let's say for example we wanted to get the image, the value for image, or if you wanted to get the total quantity price, we can just put the same formula. Let's say that if you wanted to know the price, then image, you can see the price is $500, and then this is the URL of the image, whatever we have put here. So one thing that you need to keep in mind is that lightning record data, if you are using layout type instead of fields attribute, so let's say that you are using here name, and some admins go to the layout and remove this particular field, then you will not be able to get the information for that field here. Let me show you how it affects, because we are using layout type. We are using a layout type for getting the field information from the layout. If I'm an admin, as an admin, I'm going to the object, editing the layout to remove the name field, and after removing the name fields, let's see what will be the impact on our custom component that we developed. So go to the layout, edit it, Okay, we will not be able to remove this. Let's say that we are using image. Just remove this, quick save, go back to the component, refresh it, and we are not able to get the information for image field. Why? What is the reason? Because we are not using that field here in our component. If you are not using, let's say that as of now we are adding all the fields here, and then after that some admin goes some add some rip fields and then remove some fields, that we will not be able to get the intended information in our custom component. So to avoid these kind of situations, what we need to do, instead of using the layout type, best practice is always to use fields. Let's say that if you wanted to use ID, name, price, image, you just need to provide the information over here in the fields. Now if you are providing the layout type, that doesn't matter because we are using the fields, and we will only get the information for those fields that are provided here in the fields attribute. So now if I am accessing any other attribute, let's say I'm here in the component and I am accessing bravery ID here. Instead of image, I am also accessing this field. Let's go back to our component, refresh this, and let's see what are the impact, if you are able to see any changes here on the component or not. You will see that we are able to get 47 as well. Why? Because we are specifying both the fields, the 4 fields that we are accessing, and the layout type also. So first it checks for the fields and then it goes for the layout type. So now what we will do, we will go to the layout and we will remove the image from the layout, and then we will see now if you are able to get the image information as or not. So let's refresh it. You can see that we are able to get the information of image, although we have not added that image field in the layout. So that means the only thing why we are getting is that we are specifying that field and that information here in the field, as we are here using the bravery and we are not using layout type. Sorry, we are also using layout type. If I remove this layout type, now I will not be able to get the information about bravery. You can see I'm not able to get the value for 47. Why? Because I'm not using layout type and that field is not included here in the fields attribute. So this is the simple way that Lightning force colon record data works for fetching the information for a particular record for any kind of object. Let's say that if I remove this information and I wanted to use this record, this particular the whole component for different objects, let's say that account, I can use, because here I didn't provided some specific object, I provided the generic object that is also works as a yes object here. So you can also use this, and here we are using just displaying ID and name. Next thing is for creating a record. So for creating a record, we also need to create a new attribute for force colon record data. And then for creating a record, there are two things that we need to do. First thing, on the initialization of the component, we need to get the template of a particular object, whatever we want to create. Let's say that here in the example I took, and for contact we are using get new record, the method that we discussed earlier. Get new records takes 4 parameters. One is as a S object type, what is the type, what is the object that we wanted to create, and then record type ID, and put null here if you don't want it to specify, and then skip cache you can provide false or true. And then a callback function is responsible for checking either we are successfully able to create the template for the particular object or not. And it's always a best practice to put this callback function inside $a.getCallback, so that we didn't collapse the context. We always be in a different context. So let's see, this is the first thing that we need to do on the initialization of the components. That means we need to put this code, put all this code inside the init function. So let's first do this, and then we will see the next part, that is calling the save record method for creating a new record. So let's go ahead, create a new component. We will name it as LDS create record. And here what we'll do, we'll just copy the complete thing and then we will modify according to ours. So here what we need to do, we need to create record. So we just need to remove this part because we are not going to specify any ID as we are going to create. Change the aura ID as a record creator. Remove this divis all the fields. Remove this as well. If you wanted to specify, you can specify. There is no objects and there is no certain rules. The other thing that we need to do, go ahead, create the aura handler for specifying the init name. Init value will always be this. And then for the action, we can call action. I'll name it as doInit. In the doInit, what we need to do, we need to create the template for creating a sample contact record, of creating a sample beer record. So here, as we are working with the beer explorer object, and we are already here on the beer record, so we will do that. We will create a beer record. So we need to use this aura ID. What we will do, we will use the same concept for finding the aura ID, that will be record creator, and then get new record. And here for the get new record, we have 4 parameters. First one is beer. Second one is record type ID, that we don't need to specify. Third one is skip catchy, we are going to specify as a false. And then the other one is $a dot get callback, that itself a function, so we need to specify a function. Now what we need to do, we need to check. Here we are providing the target record as a record, as this is the attribute that is responsible for getting the whole template, for getting the template view, getting the loaded record, or getting the target record we are targeting. We need to use this component, and here we can check as a where record. Go to component.get. Here we will get, if you are not able to, like if you go back to the component, here you will say, here you will see that we are able to get the record and then the error. So here, if we are able to successfully initialize the template for beer record, we will get some information here on the record. v.record. And then we also need to check for the error, if you are able to get any error while initializing the component and the template of beer record. So we will get the target error here. And then here what we will do, we will put an if check. If error, if you are able to get any error, or record equal to null. So either we are not able to get the record, or we are able to get, we are encountering any errors. We need to check that. So what we'll do, we will just put console.log error file, creating the template, and then we'll put error, or we can just put successful console you can also put alert here. Template, initiated. We can save it. Oops, we are getting the error on the line number 10. Okay, so now what we'll do, we'll go ahead to the beer record, we will add that component, and we will see if you are able to get the alert message or the error from the console log for the error. So go back, find the component ls create record, and here we'll just save it, go back, we should be able to get the alert message template initialized. So this was the first step that we did. We created the attributes, we created the force colon record template for creating the record. Now the next step is to create the form. So first let's go ahead and see what are the required fields for creating a beer. I believe that there is the name only. Yep, there is only the name that we need to. So here what we will do, we will create a lightning input, and we will put as required as true. We will, so what we will do, we will use the target fields here to get the value, to bind the value that we already discussed. If you are using any attribute inside the value, we are already binding that the value for that attribute, and also in the value we are putting the value for whatever the value is there present for the attribute. And then we will use the id as a beer name, and then we will provide a lightning button. We will label it as save record, we will value is same as save record. On click, we will just call a method that will call it dot handle save. So before we go ahead and write the method, write the logic for save record, I'd like to show you what is the syntax, how it's look like, and how it will work. So the same thing is there. Let's go ahead and see. So here you can see component find record create recorder. This is the aura id that we are using, and then the method that we need to use, save record, that takes only a single parameter, that is a callback function. And inside callback function we can get all the states that we are getting while we are calling the method while we are calling the apex method from the JavaScript. We can get success, dropped, incomplete, error, and we can also get processing while the request is processing to the server. And we can also get the information like id of the saved record if you wanted to get. So let's go back. and use this SLDS, sorry. So here what we'll do, we'll just save record, and this save record only takes one single parameter, that is a callback function. Inside callback function we can just check for the different sales. Let's say that if you wanted to check, for example, save result dot state equal to success, or draft, or incomplete, or we can also check for the error. Okay, so here if the record is we are able to successfully save the record, what we can do, we can either we can navigate to the record detail page, or we can just show a sample toast message, and so that we can just use an inbuilt method that is called as $a.get, and here we can use e.force : show toast. This is an inbuilt functionality that we can use for showing the information in toast, like warning, success, error, whatever we wanted to use. And then inside this parameter we have a familiar method that is called as set params. We can set the param, and then the same thing that we can fire the toast. So here we have title, we can say that record saved, then we have type we can either provide success, we can either provide error, either we can provide information, info, or for warning, and then we have message. Whatever the message we want to put here, we can say that has been saved with the record ID. Let's say that if you wanted to show the record ID, and then the record ID will be available inside save result dot ID attribute. So now if you go back, open any, let's say that this one, template initialized, we're not able to get. Why? We just need to refresh the record. Here you can see that we are able to get, let's say, put it test name, click on save record. You can see beer record has been saved with the record ID of undefined. Why? We will see it later. First go to the beer record and see if you are able to get the ID for that particular beer record. Sorry, we are able to create, you can see we are able to create the beer record with the same name that we provided here. Now what we'll do, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove the alert. Now same thing, as we are successfully able to create the records, let's say name it as 1 and save it, and see if we are able to get the same record saved. I'll go back to the record that we opened with this test name. Let's refresh it. And you will see that we are getting the updated name. Why? Because now this particular record is having the record ID after the creating the record. If you are able to, I think I need to use a small ID. Refresh the page. So why we are able to get the updated name here? Because once we have successfully able to create the record, that record is returning the same thing. In case of Visual Force page happens, after creating the record it returns the record ID. Here also after creating the record it returns the record ID, and then if you clicking on the save record, it will update the record with the same method. So here now let's go back. Okay, let's delete this record and also see how we can delete the record using the lightning record data. So let's go back here. We will put that last test beer, click on save record. Okay, we are not able to get the ID, but if you go back, refresh this, you will be able to get this test beer. Now if you wanted to check the updation, you can just click on save and it will just update the name of the beer record. Why? The reason is same. We are able to get the record ID for this particular object, for this particular record. Now here you can see one thing I wanted to show you, that let's say for example if you wanted to put some information behind the scene, if you don't wanted to get the input from the user but you wanted to put some information behind the scene, what you will do, you just need to use the same concept as we use for setting the parameters, component.set. Let's say that we wanted to put the information for ID, we just need to use, here we comes the target fields into the picture. We need to use target fields here, v.target fields, that name of the field that we wanted to put, and here let's say that I wanted to put, sorry, I just wanted to put some random number here. Now if you go back, okay, create a new record, click on save record, we are able to get, go back to the beer tab, refresh the record, we are able to get test beer here, and you can see we are able to get the we are able to set the value for ID fields. So if you wanted to set some fields from the backend, from behind the scene, you just need to use the sample attribute simple the same approach that we are using for setting the component values, for setting the attribute values, either for to display the information in the component or to store some information in the attribute. You can also put the value, you can also set the value for the reference record. Let's say that while creating the beer order, we have the required value, that is beer master detail relationship. We can also put that here, we can also set the value here with using the same approach that we are following here. So this here what we saw that how we can update the record, and then also we saw how we can set the value for a particular field from behind the scene that the user doesn't interact with. So we saw how we can update. Yeah, here you can see that there is one thing, the only difference, the same thing is save record that takes one parameter, that is the function callback. Either you can enclose that function inside $8 or get callback, or you can leave it as it is that we are using for creating the record. So the only thing, the best practice is that if you are working with the save record for updation, the best practice is to always enclose the callback function inside $8 or get callback, so that we remains on the same context, with this context doesn't get conflict. And this is the best practice provided by the Salesforce. So we can just go ahead and put this, you can enclose the callback function inside the $get callback. For deleting the record, now comes how we can delete the record using the Lightning data services. So there is same thing, it only takes one parameter. Delete record takes only one parameter, that is $get callback. And then here in the function, as save result takes one parameters, inside the function there is a save result parameters that we sent. We can also change the name of the variable whatever we wanted to name it. It also, the syntax is completely same, the only thing is that the method name is changed, that is called a delete record. So now as we have to test beer record, what we are going to do, we are going to create a new component that will be ls delete record, and we will be deleting both to beer record with the help of this attribute, sorry, with the help of this component. Here we need to change this as a record. Let's change this at records handler for delete record. And this whole function will be enclosed inside new, that is $a dot get callback. And now here we need to that record has been deleted. Inside save, instead of save result, we can just delete result we can replace with delete result. We don't need to this. As the method name is different, let's change the method name. Let's go ahead and see how we are able to delete or not. So first we need to put that component here, ls delete component. Unable to find do init. Okay, we will remove that do init handler from the component, as we don't need this handler. We will save back. Here you can see delete records. Let's click on this. Delete record must load records in force colon record data before delete. Okay, I think here I forget to provide the ID, that is record ID for the record which we wanted to delete. Put it as record ID, and we can also, to be sure we are able to get the information, we can also just use v.recordfields.id to get the information. Let's go back, reload the component. Okay, we are able to get the ID. Now click on delete record. You are able to see beer record has been deleted. Now what happens if I refresh this page? I should not able to get the data because it looks like they unfortunately this. So what happened when we deleted the record? We were on the same page. So as we are deleting the record, we need to get back to this page here after deleting the record. So what we will do, we will use lightning navigation to navigate to this page, as we already used lightning navigation for one of now we're navigating to different components. So or ID we can use navref and here inside success what we need to do, we need to page reference equal to component.find this. So now for getting the information how we can go back, we just need to go to the component library and then get the information for the lightning navigation over here. Go to the navigation, okay, here you can see nav service. We just need to go here or we can just use here. This is the same thing that we wanted to. We just wanted to go to the list for the beer object. So we will go here, we will create a new object that is page reference. We will say that now underscore C, and then for the filter we don't need to provide anything else, and then here we just need to use page reference dot navigate method to navigate to the intended page where we wanted to. So now let's go back, open this beer record, refresh the page. Now if you click on delete record, you can see that we are able to navigate, and we are also able to see that beer has been successfully deleted. So this is the way that we can either create the record with the help of lightning data services, we can update, we can delete. So we are already covered all three methods that are save record, delete record, and then get new record. We also saw one more method that is called as reload record. So how reload record works, that we will see in the lab practice work. So for the lab work, what we need to do, we need to modify or create beer order component using SLDS. So earlier what we did, we were using lightning corner record form for creating the beer record. So as now why we are not using the lightning corner record form for creating the beer order. Why? Because whenever we are going to the beer order from particular beer, let's say that from here we are going clicking on order. Now we are going to a component. Here we have to specify for which we have to pre-populate for which beer we are going to create this particular order. So as we are, if you are using lightning corner record form, there is no way we can default the value for any particular either text field, text area field, or a number field, or a lookup field. So as we don't have any way to specify to default the value for lookup field, that is beer, and that is also a required field, because beer is the relationship between or beer order and beer is a master detail. We have to default the value for beer that we are getting from the URL. This is why we are going to use force colon record data. We are going to use lightning standard controller for creating the record. So for the simplicity of the tutorial, I already created this. I already modified the component whatever all the need is here for the component. And I also share the link on the description of the video so that you can get the code you don't need to develop. Let me explain you what I did and what was the need for each and every line. So as we are going to get the information for the beer from the record ID, that means the name of the beer, the price of the beer, because we need to calculate the total amount with the help of price of the beer, and then the quantity that is being ordered for by the particular user. So what we did first, for creating a new template for the beer record, I just used the same that we did for creating a record. I just name it as new record object beer order, and then new record error for the error. And then the other thing, for reloading, for getting the information for a particular beer record, I used another false colon record data attribute. I can say another extended controller for getting the record information with the help of reload record method. And then I created a form with the help of this beer record that we are going to use. We are using target fields, the attribute beer record. I just use beer record for the lightning input. For the name, that is read only, we are just using simple record. What is this simple record? The simple record is nothing, it's an attribute that is bind with the target fields for the beer record, another extended controller. And then input address for showing the address information, that is shipping address. And for the input address, we have all fields in the lightning input address like street, city, country, state, province, postal code. And we also we can specify either it is required or not. And then the help level that we can see here, you can see whatever the help text after hovering the information. And then the same for the billing address, as we have a checkbox called billing same as shipping. That means if this particular address is same as shipping address, we can check this and make this particular section as a read only, and then not required for a particular order. So what I did, I just use the ternary, I just use if else condition. If the billing same as shipping is checked, that means if this particular checkbox is checked, then the value for street is shipping street, otherwise the value for street is billing street. The same is read unlike for the shipping city, country, state, and postal code. And then for the required, if this particular checkbox is not checked, then this section is required. That is not billing same as shipping. And then read only, if this particular checkbox is checked, then we need to make this particular section as a read only, so that user can't enter the information that is different from the shipping address. So these are the attributes. And if you wanted to know more about the input address, you can just go to the lightning component library and you will get all the information over here. If you find input address, you can click on the input address. You can get here, this is the basic that I used. If you wanted to specify some pick list for country and then state, then you can also use this one. So here is a sample code as well. And for the all the attributes, you can just click on specification tab and you will get all the information that here you can use. Disabled, read only, required, what are the variants. You can use all this information here. You can also get go to the documentation tab, you can also get all the information over here. So and then I just put the checkbox here and then create the button for submitting. So now as we are initializing the template here for the beer order object, on the same thing on the initialization of the component, go to the controller, do init page reference. What we are doing, as we are coming to this component from the beer record from the beer list page, we have some information on the URL, that is beer ID and then beer name. So now what do you need to do? Beer ID, we need to get the beer ID so that we can get the information for the beer. So we just get the information state page reference dot state. Why we are getting page reference dot state? Let me go back to the beer list component and show you the all things so that you can recall the things. Here from the controller, if you see here, okay, this is not the one. Okay, that is beer details. The component name is beer details. Yep, here you can see we are passing all the information inside an object that is called as state. So first we need to get the reference, page reference, and then we need to go to the object that is called as state, and then from the state we can get the beer name and then the beer ID. So this is what we are doing here on the order controller. First we are getting the state, the page reference. For getting the page reference, we just need to use v dot page reference, that is the predefined attribute that we don't need to define in our component, so you don't need to think more about this, like from where this attribute came. This is a predefined. If you are using lightning colon is URL addressable as implements. In implementing this interface, this particular attribute automatically becomes available. And then we are checking if you are getting some information on the page reference, then we are getting the state, and then from the state we are setting the beer ID. This is an attribute here in the component. You can see beer ID and beer name. We are not using this, so we can just comment it out, no problem commenting it. And here in the controller you can see we are setting the beer ID with whatever the beer ID we are getting from the URL. Whatever the beer ID is here, we are setting on that beer ID. And then you can see record reviewer. This is the aura ID of the lightning extended controller of the first column record data attribute that we created to getting the information of related beer. You can see the aura ID is record viewer, and then we are using related record for method. Let's say that the aura ID changing, beer ID changing to another beer record, we will get the name of that beer record over here with the help of reload method. For whatever the ID you will pass here on the URL, you will get the information with that particular record here. And then what we are doing after that, here what we are doing the same thing. We are finding the aura ID of the creator for LDS, and then for the API name beer order, and then null for the record type ID, for the skip catchy false, and then for the get callback function. So this is the same, this is the thing what we are doing. We are getting the template, we are getting the beer record data, and then we are creating the sample form for creating the beer order record. Here you can see that we are getting the sample form with the help of lightning input address, lightning input number, lightning input checkbox. And then whenever we are clicking on this submit button, there is a method called as handle submit that is being invoked, that is of JavaScript itself. And here what we are doing, let me show you the beer record, the new beer record. So that here, okay, this is not this is click on new. You can see the beer is the required field that we need to set the value that we are already setting behind the scene when user is clicking on submit. And then the order by is the user that is ordering. We have two users, Amit Singh and guest admin. So, and then if you are clicking on this particular record, we have to pre-populate these fields. We have to populate the value for these fields, whatever the information is there in these fields. And then order amount, we also need to populate the order amount, that will be quantity order multiplied by related beer price. So this is why what we are doing here, we are just getting the simple record. The simple record is the beer record, the related beer record. Here you can see target fields for the related beer record. This is the field that we did for while creating the beer record using the LDS create, and then for just for confirmation that we are able to get the beer price or not. And then here we are getting the quantity for the beer order, whatever the quantity we are using, we have given into the input for the beer record order quantity you are getting here, and then we are just debugging with the console log. And then for the total price we are multiplying with the help of parse int, so that we can get the output in a number, not in a case not in a string or anything else. And then what we are doing here, we also created a method for validating, as these are there are some required fields, numbers, all fields are required. So here we are just validating the same thing with the same way that we saw on the earlier tutorials on the earlier session, how we can validate. Let me explain it so that you can recall it again. For this, what we need to do, we just need to provide the same order ID for all the inputs that we did, that is B order. You can go to the component, you will see order ID is B order for all the inputs, for the input address as well, for the input address, and then we don't need to check for the checkbox. And then we just need to use reduce function that will take two parameters inside a function, valid so far or valid fields, and the component that is being validated. And there is an inbuilt method that is show help message if invalid, and then we can just validate either the required fields, pattern mismatch, or the incorrect input. We can check whatever we wanted to check here. And then in the controller we are checking if, here you can see if not is valid, that means if there is some validation error, then return the code from here, don't execute anything after that. After line number 41, don't return anything. If that is true, then go ahead and return these things. And then here we are checking if the checkbox is true, then we are setting the information, the billing street as a Seeping street, whatever the billing city, country, state, postal code, whatever the value are there in the Seeping sheet, Seeping address, we are setting all the values here on the billing address. And then for setting the current user, the user who is ordering the beer, we have to also set the order by. We have also, where are we? We also need to set the order by here, current user. As I am logged in as Amit Singh, I need to put this order by as a default value. I don't need to select the user to select who are you, because the user is already logged in into the system. There is no need, there is no sense to say the user, hey, you need to select this order by. So for that there is a very simple way. We can just get $a.get $s object type, the current user and ID. What it does, it just return the ID of the current user, whoever logged in into the system. And then here we are just setting the beer record, whatever the beer ID we are getting from the URL, the order by user ID, who is the or who the user is ordering the error, and the order amount, the total price that we already calculated here, and then we already setting the address information. And then in the last we are invoking save record. We are showing the toast here, simple toast that order place, your order has been successfully placed. If there are any errors, then we are displaying the error message as well. So this is the simple thing, the very simple thing that we the only thing that here is complex is we are just setting the value for more records behind the scene, setting the value for more fields behind the scene. Otherwise the same thing is we are doing the same thing that we did while we are seeing the example for creating the beer record with the help of Lightning extended controller. And then for the styles, I just use the background as a dark green so that we can see the information. So now let's go ahead, go to the beer explorer, and see how it works or not. So select any beer. Let's say that for this one, just clicking on view, order now, put the quantity as 10, street 123, main street, city anything, Pradesh, pin code India, and check this checkbox. If you check this checkbox, you can see that required the red marks, the red star has been removed, and you can also not type anything. This has been become red only. So now if you click on place order, you will be able to save. So before that, you can see the beer name is whatever we selected beer. If you go to the inspect element, whatever the thing we put as a console, you can see the beer name, the object, the template that is initialized. If you click on now, click on place order, you can see the success message, order placed, your order has been successfully placed, and you can also see the information that is price 500, beer price is 500, quantity placed is 10 beers, and then total price is $5,000. So now if you go to the beer order, this one is the latest one that we placed. If you go, you can see we are able to see the beer that we for which we place the order. You can see the order by that I'm the user, I'm placing the order, and then you can see the information, whatever the shipping address, the same information is here for the billing address, because we are setting the value behind the scene while user clicking on place order. And then you can also see the value for order amount, order quantity, and then order number. So this is how the Lightning Extended Controller works. So there are different benefits for this. You can see minimize the Xmlhttp requests with the servers for fetching the records, and also reducing the network traffic, as we are not using any server calls now for fetching or creating, updating the records. Catchy records the data on the client side, we don't need to get the separate component metadata. We can also share the records across the component with the help of reload record method that we also saw. Then it also enables the performance, it also enables proactive the cache populations, create the notification with record changes, that there is an attribute that is called as target updated. Let me show you that here as well. So if you go here, first column record data, you can see here on the specification there is method, sorry, there is another attribute that we can put here that is called as record updated, and then inside that attribute we can just call a method, a JavaScript method that tells us that record has been updated, and we can show the information, we can show the toast as per our need, that whatever we wanted to display to the user that this particular records had been updated by you or some other user. So this was all about the Lightning Extended Controller, how LDS works with the with Lightning components. The same controller that works for the Visual Force pins, we have force column record data, that is the working is somehow different, but both are the same thing, that both works only for the single record, that we cannot show the information of multiple records with the help of Lightning LDS and Lightning data services. I hope you have got some good content here. You have got new things to learn in this video. We'll see you on the next video. And one thing, I'd also share the credentials of guest admin so that you can go to the org, you can check the code, you can also get the codes and practice in your org. Thank you guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. And please do like, subscribe and share the channel, the videos. Thank you.